Delegating Your Way to Prosperity with Emiliano Espinosa. How many of you have a lot of tasks on your plate? And how many of you are feeling overwhelmed with activity? And how many of you would like to have more people do your work for you? My name is Marc.brajak, and welcome to the show, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about the skill of delegating and how it can help you to achieve prosperity. Delegating is a skill that allows for increased leverage in your life. And before we move forward and introduce our guest, I want everyone to acknowledge why they're here. Maybe for a loved one or for yourself, or maybe this kind of topic is beneficial to your profession. And whatever it is, thank you for being here today. And by the time this show is over, you will have an insight on what it takes to delegate a task successfully. You will learn how to have your tasks repeated by the same people, guilt-free, and you will become empowered to begin the habit of delegating today, right after this call is done. Now, I went to a live seminar in Orlando last month, March 2015, where I met our guest for today. And we had so much in common, and we immediately knew that we wanted to collaborate on something special for our audiences. You know, it's funny because I was looking down to my left at this guy who was sitting next to me, and he was writing down, I need such and such in my life or in my business. And I was like, wow, I can help you with that. And so right after the speaker was done, we started talking, and that's when I really started to get to know who this guy was. So we're here to educate and inform you of how the skill of delegating can help you to get to the next level in your life, maybe in your career or in your family life or whatever it might be. And I'm here today with none other than Emiliano Espinosa. He is a marketing strategy consultant and empowerment coach for the youth of today. And get this, he's only 19 years old. Emiliano, how are you doing today?
Hey Mark, how are you? I'm really good. Thanks for asking. I'm really excited. This is our first podcast together, and I'm just thrilled to be here and to express what I've learned so far in delegating to our audience.
Yeah, awesome. Like I know, like since the first time we talked, we said, you know, we were gonna the people who are listening to this podcast. I don't know if I would call this a podcast or an episode or whatever you want to call it, but whoever's listening to this, this is exactly who we made it for. You guys, whoever's listening to this right now, we've made this especially for you, because Emiliano and I, we were having the same challenge in our life. We're not professional delegators by any means. I'm going to speak for myself. I'm going to let Emiliano speak in a second, but I know for me, like I have a tendency to, I just want to get it all done. I just want to do it myself. This is not like, it's got to be perfect. It's got to be this certain way. And the only way to be able to do something right is if I was to do it myself. And maybe that's conditioning or maybe that's truth. I don't know. But that philosophy has really stuck with me, I'd say for a number of years. So what do you think, Emiliano? Do you kind of relate to that or what?
Yeah, absolutely. I just what you said, that's what happens to me. I feel like every time I try to tell someone to do something, I feel like I'm giving up my control, and that's something I hate doing, because it's like, oh, he's gonna have all the power to decide how to do it or when to do it. So it's always like really difficult to delegate a task for me. And I've always asked the same question, like how or what's the best way to delegate something so the other one feels empowered, and you also feel like you're giving up tasks that are really overwhelming, and someone else can do them better for you. Feel the same way.
So before we go into it and like start talking about the skills that we've learned over the past couple of weeks and how we got started with this, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and like your story, how you got started? What was like that one thing that just kind of was like, whoa, like I could be an entrepreneur? Like what was that? What was that story?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I'm well, as he said, I'm 19 years old, and I came from Mexico. I've always lived in Mexico, and it's I came to the U.S. 1 year ago. I live in South Florida, and I think my story begins when I was 6 years old. My parents got divorced, and I lived always with my mom. I'm the oldest in my family, and I've always had to be like the father, and always had to treat my mom and help her come out of that situation of lack of money and lack of we sometimes we didn't even have food, like enough food to eat. So I've always said to myself, I don't want to live this in my when I'm older, and I want to really make a change and a difference in my family, and I also want to support other families that are living the same thing. So that's when it started. When I came to the US, I had so many opportunities that came into my life that I've been taking advantage. And as you said, the market, the seminar we took together, that's when I also got a really good insight of this is something I love doing, marketing, and I started from there, and it's been a great trip, adventure.
Awesome. Yeah, for me, I think the World's Greatest Marketing Seminar is definitely one of my favorite courses. It's definitely like a hands-on experience for me, and I got to not only just do a lot of things myself, which is what I've always had a tendency of doing, but I had the opportunity to delegate, I guess you could say, work that will show that I want to, flourish my business in some way or another. We had a lot of group experiences and opportunities to interact with other people that were at the seminar with us, and it's so much better to brainstorm with other people. I know that Emiliano and I, we even had sat down together for lunch. It was like what, 5 to 10 minutes we sat
Yeah, I
down,
think so. 10
like
minutes.
a brainstorming map. Like that was pretty incredible. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I was really impressed. I've never done something like that before. We got together, and we I told him, let's brainstorm on ideas that we can create together, and in like less than 10 minutes we had a full list of ideas, and it was like awesome.
See, you know what, Emiliano, I'm glad that you say that, because there's not a lot of people are uh, who are like-minded, and anybody can really say that. And I'm just so blessed on your website and with all the other things that you're going to be doing is just so it is congruent with what I want to achieve with my website. So let's get into it here. Let's move on and start diving right into it. Um, so like, how did we tell everybody how we got started with this idea of like delegating? What was kind of like the story behind that a couple weeks ago when we first talked?
Well, we started thinking when we did that brainstorm, we thought about everything that is needed in order to, or what are the key aspects that anyone needs in order to live a fully life, like a life that you love, and a life that where you have abundance, and as well, like if you have a business, how to grow your business, if you have a hobby or a sport that you like doing. So it's like a complete spectrum of your life. So from there, we had the idea of how important it is to delegate, because we only have 24 hours in one day, and at least 10 of those hours, or maybe less, we a little bit less, we spend sleeping. So we can't do everything that we would like to do. Like, I have so many books in my library that I want to read, and it's not possible. There's always something we can't do, especially when you have a business, like, or something that you're responsible of. It's almost impossible to accomplish everything. So that's when Marc and I start thinking, like, how can we delegate things so we can get more things done in a, like, a more productive way, and also involve other people in our projects. I think that was the question I was asking myself.
So I'm gonna piggyback off of what you were just saying there. I totally agree with what you're saying, and a lot of stuff that you said. Like, how can we thing that comes to mind after what Emiliano just said is the accounting department, because not a lot of people like to balance their books. So what do? They hire someone who's going to do that for them so that they can have enough time to focus their energy elsewhere. Maybe it's promoting the business. Maybe it's expanding the team to get somebody else to promote the business for you, or whatever it might be. And what we decided was that, you know what, we're going to hold each other accountable for the next week. And then by the time the next week came around, we said, let's push it for another week and see if we can come up with anything else. And sure enough, I did. We're going to hold each other accountable for this week, and we're going to start writing down at least one thing every day that we delegated and see what kind of comes up for us. Now, I'll be honest, I did not write down something every single day. I'll be honest again, I did not write down something specific every day that was a task that I delegated. I think there was like 1 or 2 days at most where I did not write something down at all. And on top of that, most of the days, let's say 14 days, 2 weeks, 14 days, most of the days I wrote down a lesson rather than an actual task that I delegated. So, I'm excited to share with you guys what some of those things were. But is there anything that you wanted to say or on top of that?
Yeah, let me also acknowledge that we the agreement that we had, or the ground rules we set for this period of time, is that we would every day we would have a lesson, or we would have a something that we delegated. Anything, it could be something small, something big, it doesn't matter what it is, but we had to delegate something so we could practice that, so it could become a habit.
Sorry, hold on.
Yeah.
I just cut you.
Sorry?
Were you going to say, so I lost you there for a second. Were you going to say that every day?
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, there's like signal problems. So I was saying that every day we would do something of delegating. Like we would delegate something, that's what I meant. And it doesn't matter if it's small or big, we would have to delegate something, and we would write it down. So the next week we would share together and see our results and our lessons. That was the challenge, or that was the accountability process that we had between each other. And in my case, I also wrote some lessons that I learned, and they're pretty amazing, especially when you can share it with someone like someone that is holding you accountable. So that's I'm glad to share. But you can begin, Mark.
Okay, I'll take the opportunity and I'll start. So for me, the very first thing that I wrote down was I asked my brother to send me an email. And Emiliano was just talking about how it could be either something big or it could be something small. And I was also just talking to you guys about how I always had the tendency to want to do everything myself. And you can only imagine that I was actually scared that my brother would say no, to ask him to send me an email. And I was like, we were looking up something online, and I was like, hey, do you mind like copying that link and like sending it to me, like to my email? Where usually, and I bet you, I'm gonna swear that if it wasn't for Emiliano and I having this accountability thing going on, I probably would have just whipped up my phone and wrote it down in my to-do list that may or may not have ever been seen again. But instead, I had the courage at that point to, kindly ask my brother, hey, would it be okay for you to send me an email with that link attached in the email? Then I had asked him to. I had a pile of papers because I just moved in. Here, and I asked him to shred like a stack of papers for me that they needed to be shredded. They were scrap paper, and usually he would say not he would say, I shouldn't assume that, but anyways, the point is there was fear, and now the fear is not there so as much as it was before. And that's really what the basis was for me in the past, of like not being able to delegate, having to want to do it all on my own. And the reason was because of fear. So I really want to talk about some of the things that I have. I mean, I learned a lot over the past 2 weeks, but why don't you go ahead and talk about some of your things?
Awesome. I think that lesson is huge. I also got that one. Fear of rejection is what stops so many people from delegating, and I think it's super important to get that fear out. Like, my fear is to get a no from someone when I ask them to do something, or when I invite them to come somewhere. That's my fear, and fear of rejection is mostly. So what did I do this last 2 weeks? Well, I have certain examples that I could share. Like, I've always, like, I keep tweeting stuff in my Twitter, and there's sometimes I just forget to do it. And so my mom is always sending me messages from Mexico, like inspirational messages. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool that she sends them to me. Sometimes I don't read them, sometimes I do. The thing is, she got mad with me because I didn't reply to her, and she thought I wasn't reading them anymore. So she was like, okay, I won't send them anymore. And in that moment, I thought, like, why don't I use her messages? I read them, I translated them, and then I put them in my Twitter. So that's what I did. I got to ask her if I could do that, if she let me put her messages in Twitter. So I was able to delegate my that task to her, and I just need to translate. And so the amount of time that I spend tweeting every day is less because I did that. So that was really, really cool. I mean, it's small, but it's worth it. It saves me a little bit of time each day.
And I think that that's an awesome lesson as well, because that's not really delegating per se. It's just kind of like leveraging, which is leverage is something that we will talk a little bit more about on this call. It's just like when I think about leveraging, what comes to mind is, what are some resources or tools that I already have that I'm not using, that if I was to use it, it would make my life just a little bit better. So yeah. that I think right there, what you just said is awesome, because now you're getting other people involved, and especially with someone special to you like your mother, she would probably really appreciate that. Now,
absolutely.
Another thing that came up is there were like things at work where I was getting people to delegate tasks for me, like, hey, do you mind taking this and like putting it over there, where the fear of rejection again comes up once again. And it's like usually I would ask somebody at work to do something like that for me. Like, if it's just something like a simple remote control, can you mind putting it back to where it belongs? And the fear of rejection will come up because I don't want them to say something like, well, you can just go and do it yourself.
Yeah.
And where if they were to say that, then I would gladly walk over there and go put it away myself. Not everything that we delegate to people is going to be accepted by people. I'm going to say that again. Not everything that we delegate to people is not going to be accepted by people. Meaning that there are things in life where we are either going to have to do it on our own, or we're just going to have to find somebody else to do it for us. Would you agree?
I agree. I actually was thinking about what you just said, and it's important to make that distinction about sometimes delegating is much easier if you have money. That was something we talked about before. Like, I don't have money right now to pay someone to do my website, for example, so I can't delegate my website to someone else. So how can I delegate something if I don't have money or resources to give to that person? So I thought about this, and then I realized that maybe I can delegate something by inspiring that person to do it, like enrolling that person to do something just because I communicated to that person and I show something that they're gonna get from doing it, or maybe they're not going to get anything, but they're inspired by what I told them. So from there I got that it doesn't matter if you don't have money, if you can enroll other people and enroll them in in what you want to do, or something that you are thinking on doing, that's it doesn't matter. Like, the money is not a problem, they're going to do it anyways. And obviously if you can offer them a service that you do, and you do like an exchange, that's also a possibility. So what do you think, Mark?
Well, I think that's awesome. Like, would you be able to give me an example of how either you have been able to inspire somebody to do something for you, or just a general example where maybe you didn't inspire anyone to do something for you, you just know of an example? So like, just kind of like put an example just to kind of confirm what you were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me share with you. I have a YouTube channel I just started 3 weeks ago, and my sister, she's already experienced in YouTube, and I share with her, like, I don't know how to edit a video, and it's my first video on YouTube, so I would love help from you. If you could help me edit this video, I would really appreciate it. She said, like, okay, I'll do it for you, because she got inspired by what I asked her. And now, I mean, she charged me like $20 to $30 per video. But at the beginning, it was like she did it for free, or she didn't charge me anything because I enrolled her in that possibility.
Interesting perspective. Well, when I first started my very first business, believe it or not, I don't know if we've ever talked about this, was called, I'm going to leave the name to the side. We don't need to talk about that right now. But I had a business partner where we were doing seminars, like live seminars. We were doing podcasts. We were doing blogs. And I remember this one time early on in our partnership where he had gotten sick, and he actually went blind for a couple of days. I don't remember the exact reason why, but he had gone blind for a little bit. And so when he got his vision back, I talked to him and I said, you know what, like, why don't you blog about that and what your experience is? Because obviously you learned something. Obviously you had a different experience, and he wasn't able to, like, I was texting him like crazy. I was calling him like crazy, and like, he couldn't tell the difference between like a call and a text message because his phone would be vibrating, but he wasn't sure. Like, he didn't know who was calling him. He didn't know who was texting him, so he couldn't text back. Everyone like thought that he was dead. Yeah. And so I told him when he got his vision back, I said, hey, why don't you blog about it? And a couple of days later, he came back and said, you know what, Mark, I'm going to take you up on your offer, and I'm going to go ahead and blog about that. So I think that's another example right there, that of like inspiring someone else to do something for you. It was his blog, but it was our business.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I was able to inspire him in order to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. So can I just share something real quick?
Go for it.
Just to clarify, the challenge we had is there's a difference between asking someone that is already doing something for you and asking someone that is not doing it for you. So the idea is that we were gonna ask and request other people to do something for us. If they're already doing it for us, that doesn't count. So if you want to take on this challenge with a buddy of yours, that's one thing that's important for you to really point out, because there's no point of already having that thing done for you, and you take it like something that you delegated. So that's something to clarify.
Definitely. Yeah, no, that's an important rule as well. One of the rules that we made was that, if we're not asking for it, it's not considered delegating. It's just work that's automatically being done for you. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely an important point to notice. Thank you for reminding me about that one. So the next task that I want to talk about is actually not task, rather, but what I've noticed is that I'm connecting with people more frequently and on a more of a higher quality level. Like, I'm connecting with people better than I was before I started this accountability thing that I'm doing with Emiliano. And I have here in my notes, because in order to unconsciously and incompetently delegate something successfully, there needs to be trust. And so what I mean by that is that if we're not trusting other people,
Oh yeah.
then we're not going, or sorry, if we're not getting the trust from other people, if that connection is not there, then there's a much lower chance that you are going to be able to successfully delegate something to that particular person. In other words, if Emiliano and I, God forbid we ever have a bad relationship, we're not going to like. There's a very low chance that if I was to send Emiliano like a project, that he's gonna do it. He's never gonna get it done. So what do you think that means to you?
So could you just explain a little bit more? Are you saying that if we have a better trust relationship, that's gonna make it easier for you to delegate?
Yeah, exactly. And so
Okay.
what I was saying was like how I started to connect more humanly with other people. You know, with this technology that we have in our days, you know, it's not good or bad. It's just because we were surrounded by so much social media and like we're always looking down at our phones and like all this kind of stuff, that it's hard to it's very challenging to be put in a situation where we're connecting with people heart to heart. And what I've noticed is that since I've been delegating to other people, I've had much more of a human connection with the trust. And what I learned, my lesson is that with what I learned is that with increased trust comes increased chance of delegating a task successfully.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree. And actually, we had this conversation. I was telling Mark that I.
So I lost you again for a second. You said I agree.
I agree. I was talking to Mark the first time we had a call together, and I was sharing with him, or the second actually, I was sharing with him that I didn't do the homework, and actually what I really thought about, and I talked to him authentically, was that there's a problem in trust in me, because I was telling him that I don't know if I can trust you to do this challenge. Like, how can I trust you that we're gonna be able to every day do what we said we would do? Because that's a problem I've always had in my teams. Like, I delegate something and they don't do it. So how can I trust that person that he's gonna do it? That was my problem, and I shared it authentically with him. And I think we got to a point where I realized that it was me, the one that is not trusting. So if I don't trust myself, I can't trust other people. And I that was a huge revelation for me, because now, instead of telling other people to do it, I do it myself. And I always keep my word. I always do what I said I would do, or not always, but I try to do it every time. And that brings a lot of clearing, and I'm able to communicate much better and trust Mark much better.
Yeah. So just to again piggyback off of what you were saying, is that Emiliano was talking to me. He's like, I'm not sure if I'm able to do this and blah blah blah. And like I'm gonna assume that like a lot of mind frick was coming up for you back then. And again, this was 2 weeks ago today, from this day, 2 weeks ago from this very day, whatever date that was. Let me just pull my calendar. So we originally came up with this idea on April 6th. And here we are, April 20th, talking about, this task like as if we're professionals. And again, as a disclaimer, we're not professional delegators by any means. We're always growing. We're still young, and we're always growing and stuff. So I got this phone call right now, but I'm going to kindly ignore that. So anyways, what I was telling Emiliano was that I didn't want him to feel like he was in this alone, because I am not a very good delegator. Talking back in April 6th, I'm not a very good delegator myself, and this is something that I definitely want to help me to get to the next level in my life. And so when I said that to you, how did that make things different? When I got on your level and I said, you know what, Emiliano, don't worry about it. Like, we're in this together. Like, how did that make things different for you?
I guess it was really, no, I remember when you said that, I was like so thankful, because I was putting a lot of expectations on my side, and when you came to my level, as you said, like, we're both growing together and we're both sharing the stories that we're learning. So it was, for me, it was much more peaceful to do this challenge together, or this accountability process together. So what I would recommend to anyone that wants to do it is, uh, pick a person that you trust, and or maybe you don't even know that person, but uh, ask them, how do you feel about doing something together where we can hold each other accountable, and and build together, like be better people, or be better delegators together, so the other person can always hold you accountable for that. But it has to be someone that is like on your same level and you can trust, you know. So I love what you said, and that's pretty amazing that you shared that with me.
Yeah, and you know, we're in this together, so yeah, and you know what, Amelia, I'm really glad that I was able to help you in that regard, and that you stuck it out. And you know, to say nonetheless, this call is going pretty good. So I want to move on to the next thing that we talked about. And you know what, you just talked about trust and gratitude and all that kind of stuff. So let's that's perfect. This is coming up at the right time. So asking for help, advice, or an opinion can also be tied into delegating. And so I had someone write up the homepage for me of my upcoming website, marcbrajak.com, personal development for young entrepreneurs. And I went to fiverr.com. I got someone to write the homepage for me. They sent it back 4 days later, and I was reading it, and I was like, oh, I'm not really sure how I feel about this, because this isn't me. This isn't how I write any of that kind of stuff. And I gotta give credit to wherever credit's due. But at the same time, at the end of the day, it was like, you know, this isn't. I'm not really feeling this. So I'd like to know what other people think. And so what I did was I made a post on Facebook. I said, hey, I need some help. I need someone to just look at this thing that I had delegated to me on Fiverr. It's the homepage content thus far for my website. And I was just wondering if I can get some people to do it, to take a look at it. So I had Emiliano as well as several other people to take a look at it, to read it. And I didn't want them to proofread it or anything. I just wanted them to give me an opinion. And that's all I wanted. And I'm so grateful. Thank you to anyone who's watching this right now who took the time, including you, Emiliano. Thank you for taking the time to read that. I really, really appreciate it. So again, gratitude, and it is something that's so essential once you delegate a task. Because what was once yours, you're taking the responsibility and you're putting it on somebody else to do it for you. And that's why I think that gratitude is so important nowadays.
Wow.
And tying it in with gratitude. So what do you think about that?
It's really cool that you mentioned it, because when we started the conversation today, you were like, thank you very much for doing it. I really appreciate that you took the time to do it. And I felt really good in that moment, and I forgot that like we were supposed to be doing this through the week. So now that you're saying it, it's like, wow, it did feel really good. It's like right now I'm just realizing that the feeling is like I did something for him, and I really like helping others. So yeah, I agree that that part of gratitude to someone who did something is really important. Yeah.
And so what this all ties into, again, is it's all coming back to the fear of rejection. And so however we can overcome that fear of rejection, or whatever it might be that comes up for you when you're like, okay, you know, should I not delegate this particular task? It may not be the fear of rejection, but I mean, I'm going to speak for myself, and I think Emiliano has already said that what's tying in for him when it comes to delegating tasks and asking for help from other people is the fear of rejection. So any kind of task or any kind of thing where it's, you know, whether it's asking people for help, asking for an opinion, asking for advice, or delegating a task, that all ties into the fear of rejection. You know, how can we overcome that?
Yeah. Let me give you an example real quick. I was in an event last weekend, and there were a lot of people, and I got to know some of them, and suddenly I realized that I had an opportunity to ask advice to someone that he said he was really successful, and I always had this question about, what do you do whenever you have like you have anything you want, like all the money you want, you have the house you want, the car you want, the boat you want, the jet, anything you want. What do you do after that? Is there anything like fun to do? Is there anything that excites you? Like that was my question. And who better to ask it to than to someone that is millionaire, you know? So I stood up from my seat, and I like, I was scared to ask him this because it's not something usual. And I came up to him and I was like, whoa, what am I doing now? And I shook his hand and I said, hey, how are you? My name is Emiliano. And he said, hey Emiliano, and he said his name. And I was like, hey, can I ask you a question? It's something I was interested in asking you. And so I asked him that question, and he was so grateful to answer me. Actually, he wanted to talk more. And I suddenly realized that a lot of times it's our mind that stops us from asking questions to other people, or asking advice. So since then I've always been like, whoever I have a chance to ask something, I ask it. And I realize how everybody's like, yeah, and this and this and this, and it's like, okay, let's hang up now because I need to go. But they're always glad to help most of the times, because we people are creatures who like to help. So it was amazing experience that.
Very cool, very cool. So what kind of lesson were you able to learn from that?
Well, the lesson is, again, it all ties into fear of rejection and delegating. Okay, so listen to this. If I hadn't asked that question, maybe right now I would be with that same issue going in my mind, or that same concern. So because I delegated that concern to someone else and I got feedback, now I'm like, okay, maybe it's not you. I'm still gonna have a lot of fun when I have all that money I want. I'm still gonna be able to help a lot of people. I'm actually gonna be able to help more people. So now I don't have that problem anymore, that question. So it's like I delegated that question right now, instead of carrying it with me until I was successful, because then it would be like, okay, I'm gonna experience it myself, or someone already experienced it for me. So I think that's a good lesson that I can share.
I'm starting to wonder if maybe we don't have the right title for this call. Maybe we should be calling it "How to Overcome the Fear of Rejection."
Maybe, yeah, I think that's right.
So moving on, I want to talk about another example that I have here. What I've noticed is that delegating builds confidence in everything that I do. And ever since like we jumped on the phone from that first call, I was like, okay, well, what can I delegate today? What can I, do this or that? And it was just like one little thing every day. And maybe I was already delegating things in the past. Like, I mean, let's be honest. I'm a human being. I've been around for 24 years. Like, I've delegated things in my past. The only difference is, in comparison to these last 2 weeks, is that I've taken notice of them. I've taken the time at the end of my day to write something down, or something throughout the day. I was like, whoa, delegate. That's a very powerful lesson, right? I'd be at work, I would ask somebody for something, and then something would hit off in my head brain, and I would just be like, man, I gotta write that down, because I can't wait to share that with people on this call that I'm going to be doing on April 20th. So and like it, like just we do these little things every day, and we take notice of them. We have to. That's the most important thing. We have to notice them.
Yeah.
We have to take note of them. We have to become aware of them. And once we are aware of the things that we are delegating, then, or I mean, at least for me, is that I've noticed that it's built more confidence in my life. So is there anything that you've noticed in terms of becoming aware of delegating tasks over the past couple of weeks, and how that's helped you? Maybe it was building confidence, or maybe it was something else.
Yeah. And let me share something. Hold on one sec.
Sure, take your time.
I want to share this with you. I always I've been keeping a journal since like 4 months now, and I have 3 sections. This is my journal. I have 3 sections where I write feelings and emotions, like things that I feel, or like any idea that comes into my head in that moment. I write it down, or I write anything valuable or important. So I've been having this journal since 4 months, and now that we started like really thinking of lessons, it all ties into a journal. So that's something that I think it's super valuable. It's like something you're gonna be able to read when you're 80 years old, or like it's all your experiences of life. So if you're able to be aware and write those down, and always like be present to what happened like 4 years ago, for example, it's super cool because you can relate to yourself and you can teach those lessons to other people. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So what I've noticed actually is when I write things down, maybe it's something that like maybe it's like 5 successes that I had today. Let's just say,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something that I wrote down a year ago, and I would look at, okay, April 20th, 2014. What are my 5 successes? And they're gonna be like successes that are somewhere on the grand scheme of things, right? Let's just say that I look at it today and I give it like a rating of 2 out of 10. But back then it was like that was the best that I could do.
Right.
And then now when I look at my successes on the grand scheme of things, my 5 successes at the end of the day, they're going to be a lot different. It's going to be vibrating at a much higher level. And I think that's why it's so important to just write down, take the time to write down now I don't want to get too far off topic of delegating here, but I think it's so important to write down 5 successes that we have every single day.
Right.
Because there's a lot of times where we feel like we're running in the same spot.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of like stuck in a hamster wheel and we're not really getting anywhere.
Yeah.
Right. So if we're able to acknowledge our successes and look back on it a year from now in comparison to where we are today, it's going to make us feel so much better. And that to me, I mean, everyone has their own reasons for doing things, but that to me is the reason why I write those things down.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I agree with you.
For letting me share it.
I actually have another lesson I wrote down, and this is something really, really important that I think anybody should be aware of. Every time you delegate something or you're talking to someone, there should be an end result that you want to produce, or a goal from that conversation or that delegating activity. Like what is your goal? What do you really want to achieve with asking someone to do something for you? So if you have that goal or that result, you can measure yourself. So if you had that goal and you talked to this person and she said no to you, or he said no to you, then you know that, okay, 1 out of 1 has said no to you. Then you go to the next person, but you have a goal. So I want to achieve this, and I need to talk to maybe 5 people to achieve it. And by the time you'll realize that maybe that 5 people, it becomes only into 1, because you become better in roller and you become better in delegating tasks. That's something that I learned, to put goals in your delegating. I don't know how to say it.
What would be like an example of that then?
Well, specific, like I'll put you an example. It's really clear with you and I. Like when we started talking, I was the one that called. Like we were supposed to talk someday, and I decided to call you one day, and I told you, like, I told you what did I want from like our relationship, and I said, like, why don't we create a podcast? So I had a goal in my mind. I wasn't just calling to, I mean, I could have just been calling you to say hi and inspire you that day. I don't have any problems, but I had a goal with you, and look at what we've created. Like sometimes I just go on and just say hi to people and nothing happens. But when you have a goal and a clear, like something you want to achieve, it's super like you get things done, and things happen.
So you said when you have a goal.
Yeah.
And then I lost you.
Okay. So let me slow down. I'm too excited. When you have a goal or an end result on a conversation, it's much easier to realize if you're doing good. Like when we talk together and I said hi to you, and we were like, so what's up? And I told you, why don't we create a podcast together? So before calling you, I already knew that I wanted to create a podcast with you, or a video. and you were like, oh, that's a good idea, let's do it. So if I didn't have that in my mind prior to calling you, maybe nothing would happen with that conversation and we wouldn't have done this right now. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, there's just so many people that like they just make phone calls with no clear objective in mind. And I mean, right when you just said that, like I just learned something myself. Like genuinely, like I just literally learned something just by you giving out that lesson. So thank you for sharing that. One thing I want to do is I really want to talk about the other things I have on my list here. I just want to take this moment right now to acknowledge the one viewer that we have on this call. Have you noticed that in the corner there? I don't know if you can see it on your screen. Do you see that?
The one, sorry?
Did you freeze up?
Yeah, I freeze. What did you say? If I can see what?
There's a viewer. There's a viewer on the call right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we got one person on the call. Yay!
Awesome. Yay.
So whoever the viewer is, send me a message on Facebook or send me a message to my email or something. I really would like to know who it is. But thank you so much for being here. He or she has been here for, I think, the past half an hour or so.
Oh, wow. Our first viewer.
Yeah, our first viewer. That's awesome. That is awesome. Okay, so I had things in here like, we talked about the importance of gratitude. We've talked about trust, like having trust that the task will be completed successfully. And you know what? Even if you have the trust that it will be completed successfully, and it's not up to your standards, I think at the end of the day, there's only one person that you can hold accountable for that, and that's you, because you gave out the task and somebody gladly accepted it for you. But at the end of the day, you gave out the task. So if it comes back and it's not something that you had liked, well, I think there still needs to be a sense of gratitude. And more importantly, there needs to be not more importantly, I should say, and on top of that, there needs to be a sense of, okay, this was purely my mistake. It's almost as if you go into a restaurant, you order something off the menu, and it's just okay. Like it's subpar, like it's not really the greatest. It's not really their fault that it tastes bad or that you didn't really enjoy it how you thought that you were going to, because they didn't order your food for you. You did. It's like the same thing with the job. There's so many people who go to work nowadays and they're like, man, like I hate my job, or I don't like working here, or this or that. But it's like at the end of the day, you signed up for this job. So just be a warrior and just get it done. Like it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
So, I think having trust in other people is so important. Is there anything on your list that you'd like to share? I mean, I have a few more things. We got about 14 minutes left on this call.
Okay. So yeah, when you were saying that, I started thinking on something that I think is also really important when you're delegating. So something really important is the follow-up. As you were saying, like maybe something didn't get done as you wanted it to be, and it's all my responsibility because maybe I wasn't clear on what I wanted, and maybe I didn't follow up with that person like 3 days before they had to turn it in. So maybe they forgot and they remember like 1 day before, so they didn't have time to do it. So it's super important that aspect of following up with your requests and making sure, like really making sure that it's gonna get done the way you want it to be. So it's great that you mentioned that. I think it can help a lot of people, like really realizing the importance of following up and being clear on your instructions or being clear on your communication with others.
Yeah, definitely. And like if we don't ask for things, we're not going to receive them. Like my mom has always said, she's always got this saying, and I've always rolled my eyes at her for it. But I mean, she's my mom, and she's like, you ask and you shall receive. And like I remember growing up, like we would go to the store together, and like she'd always be asking customer service for help and like all this kind of stuff. And she took advantage of that. So hats off to her, all the credit to her for that. And so I know that that's something that I've always rejected. It's like, I would go to the shelf. If the item was not there that I was looking for, I would just say, well, I guess they must be out of stock. My mom would say, I demand that you go to the back room and you go and check for me to see if it's there. And surely enough, the item would be in the back room, right? So so that's what comes to mind for me. You ask and you shall receive. So with this call, I think we've already talked about it, that delegating doesn't always come in the form of a person. Okay, we've talked about leverage before, and I promised I would get back to it. And this is really where I want to get right into it. That delegating does not always come in the form of a person, right? It can be an app that provides leverage, or any kinds of tools or resources that you have available to you that you're just not using. Maybe it's because you don't know how to use them, or you've been putting it off, or you have an excuse as to why you're not using them, or whatever it might be. So delegating does not always come in the form of a person. I know that there's an app. It's called Buffer. I haven't really used it. I've been told to use it. I just haven't really used it yet for whatever reason. But Buffer is apparently it's an app where you can like post to multiple social media sites. Have you heard of it before?
I've heard of it. Maybe not that app. I've heard of other ones.
Okay. Yeah, I know that there's quite a few of them out there. Like Hootsuite is another one where you can post to multiple different social media websites. But anyways, I mean, there's so many things out there, and we have to be careful of like what we're downloading from the Apple iStore or from the Google Play Store, whatever it is, because our phones really are tools, right? And I can make a phone call to somebody who's in a different country or in a different city or whatever. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure that one day we'll be able to make phone calls to people who are on a different planet. Okay.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. Like, it's funny, but it's probably true, because we as human beings have thought that, one day, like we're not gonna be able to fly. But then what happened was the Wright brothers created the first airplane. And I mean, there's just so much. Like, so anyways, my bottom line here is I want to stay on topic. It doesn't always come in the form of a human being.
Okay.
So ask yourself, and this is to the viewers, ask yourself, what resources or tools do I have in my life right now that I'm not using? That if I was to use it, it would make my life a little bit better. Do you have any apps or anything on your phone that can help you to relate to what I just talked about?
Yeah, I actually have a couple of apps that I think they're pretty cool. They're I don't have the names with me right now, but systems, I think it's really cool, like really important. I mean, when you don't have a company or a business that is really big, maybe systems are not too important. But if you're a small business or you're starting to plan growing your business, I mean, a system that sends emails to all your clients every Monday or every month, for example, that's something that where you're leveraging yourself, and you don't have to be writing the email down or thinking about who am I going to send it to. Maybe the system already knows who to send it to, who has bought from you, like when was the last time that person bought, and it's automatic. So that's something I'm thinking about. I mean, there's few softwares like Infusionsoft where, I mean, that's an expensive one. But if you MailChimp, for example, that's one I use. It sends emails and it's pretty interesting. It's easy to use.
Right, and we talked about leverage, and we talked about how it doesn't always come in the form of a person. And these are systems that Emiliano is talking about, where he doesn't have to hire somebody else to manage those things for him, like MailChimp and autoresponders and the other things. One thing that just came to mind right after I passed the mic to you is the app Duolingo.
Mm.
And for those of you who don't know what Duolingo is it's an app where I can learn several different languages. And one of the two languages that I'm learning right now is Spanish and French. Spanish because I'm going to Cuba in a couple of days, and French because I have a lot of people that a lot of family members, sorry, in the province of Quebec. You talked about like a CRM system, a customer relationship management system, where I know for myself that people in Canada know who this company is, Shoppers Drug Mart. It's very similar to a Walgreens. Shoppers Drug Mart, they're like one of the best, if not the best, when it comes to customer relationship management, because every time their customers swipe their Optimum card, the company will track all of that information. Now I want to go back to Duolingo for a second, because I could either hire somebody, pay them money, and I can get in my car to drive there, which, by the way, I paid for my gas, drive there, and then I got to sit down, use up my time, and then listen to a teacher and take notes, listen to one person, as opposed to, and look, guys, there's no right or wrong in this. This is just, there's option A and then there's option B. That's all it is. Or I could download Duolingo on my phone and I can, for free, okay? I don't have to go anywhere. I can do it right from home. And and then I want to relate this to the student teacher situation, where instead of learning from one person, I'm learning from one computer, some might say, but this app was created by multiple people. So more than one person collaborated and created an app to help people to learn a different language. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about leverage. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's pretty clear. For example, in Duolingo, you have comments, and people can comment, and one comment might impact thousands of people. So that's like delegating information. For example, instead of every time you have a question you ask it, you already have that comment and that question answered for you. So it's like the creators are delegating the task of answering questions by letting the users respond to questions, so that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, nonetheless, guys, anyone who wants to learn a different language, I'm just going to say it right now. I recommend Duolingo. I think it's pretty fun. I do it every day. So we're coming down to the end here. Oh, when I was talking about Duolingo, I was talking about the reasons why I was learning Spanish and the reasons why I was learning French. And I remember you and I were talking last week about why it's so important to have a reason to do certain things. Do you remember that conversation? And if you do, what were we talking about there?
Let me think. I kind of remember, but you can refresh my memory.
Okay, cool. So what I was saying was, like, it's important to have a why, because it keeps us motivated, and we hear that all the time. What is your big why, or blah 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 blah. But we can also have little whys too. Like, why am I learning Duolingo? Well, it's because I got family in Quebec, and I want to learn the language of French. So that's why I'm learning Duolingo, and that's what's keeping me motivated. And also because I'm going to Cuba in a couple of days, so I want to learn how to speak Spanish. Now I want to brush up on my Spanish speaking skills. But if I just whip up Duolingo and I want to learn a language, let's say like Chinese, just for the sake of learning Chinese, well, that's not really something that's emotionally motivating. I that's the best way for me to put it. But do you get what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it ties in with what's your goal? What's your goal with asking someone any question? So what's your goal by learning French in your case, or what's your goal in learning Spanish? I think that it's really that example, as you're saying.
Yeah, setting the right intention and making sure that you're clear on your outcome. Just like you were talking about before.
Yeah.
Now, what about accountability? Having a partner, teamwork. I mean, you and I, we were accountability partners for the last couple of weeks on this, and here we are executing what we said that we were going to do. So before we started this call, we both had the commonality of I got to do everything myself.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that you've learned a lot and that you don't have to do everything yourself.
Yeah.
So what have you seen there in that area?
Well, yeah. First of all, I see myself being able to share the space with Mark right now, and not being the one that is always talking and being the one that has always to share things. It becomes much easier to share content and to share ideas when you have someone else. In this case, with Mark, and this is so powerful, because if you see, companies are not created by one person. Companies are created by a lot of people. One person is the one that has the vision. Maybe it's not only one, maybe it's three. But if you're able to put that vision or share that vision with other people and inspire them, you can create whatever you want. And I think that's a great lesson that I'm getting to see right now. It's authentic. Like I never thought I would be doing this by my own at this time. Maybe later. It's always like later. I'm gonna do it later, not now. Later. And we're doing it right now, Mark and I, and it's just amazing to do this. So I encourage everyone to really take on something that you want to do, and create with someone else that possibility, and really take on that, and hold each other accountable, and complete what you said you would do.
Yeah, I think it's just so much better. It's a lot more fun.
Yeah.
This doesn't really feel like work, but some people can think that it's work. But it really doesn't feel like work at all. And it's, like I said, it's a lot more fun. And I look forward to doing other podcasts and interviews with not only with Emiliano, because I mean, I know for myself, I'm probably going to be talking about something else with Emiliano in the near future, but with other people as well, because I love doing podcasts like this. And I'm sure Emiliano's going to, you're going to have your own people that you're going to talk to as well.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see here. Now, I got a question for you. Do you always have to reward somebody for something that you delegate to them? So I know it's kind of a vague question. I kind of just gave you a left hook right there with that. So the question is, do you always have to reward somebody with something, or not?
Well, I think it all depends on the context. But I think you're always rewarding someone with just your smile. It's a smile from someone is so powerful. Maybe someone had a bad day and you just smiled at that person, and you're giving them the power to stand up and say, I'm worth it. And I think if you're asking me, like, is it always do we always have to give something back, or what was the term?
Do you always have to reward somebody?
Reward. Yeah, sorry. If you always have to reward, I mean, money is a good reward for everyone, but there's nothing better than just like that gratitude that you were talking about earlier. That gratitude and that joy in someone else's face, and that sense that you just help someone and you're giving them a hug, for example. I mean, that's a reward. And also, like, money is a good reward, but yeah, I think you always reward someone when they do something, and even if they don't do anything, you're always rewarding people.
No, that's a good perspective. I think I'm going to agree with what you said. You talked about it really does depend on the context, because the reason why I asked this question, this actually came up for me last minute right before we started this call, is the fact that I was able to get a number of people to proofread, or just to give me an opinion on the homepage material that I had received from the woman on Fiverr. And I was like, should I reward someone for this? Because I know that 2 weeks ago, I probably would have said, I will do something special for you, whatever, like insert special thing here, whatever it might be. As a token of my appreciation, this is for you.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, you know what, Mark? Like, you had a bunch of people hit you up and say that they want to take a look at your material, and they want to read it or whatever. they volunteered for that. You are not obligated to offer them something from the physical realm, like something to show your token of appreciation.
Mm.
As a token of my appreciation, I'm going to give you a phone call and genuinely say thank you. That right there is a reward in itself. It doesn't have to be something.
Absolutely.
So I agree with what you said when you said it really does depend on the context. And that if you're not offering it in the beginning, there's no need for you to reward something of physical nature. But I do think that whenever we are delegating a task to someone, I cannot stress enough the importance of gratitude. I cannot stress that enough. So, and the last thing I want to talk about is, sometimes delegating doesn't always go smoothly. It doesn't. We'll delegate a task and it doesn't come back the way that we wanted it to. I know we've talked about this before, but Emiliano, if you're in a situation where you have delegated a task to someone, you trusted them that it was going to get done, and it didn't come back the way that you wanted, well, what do you do in those kinds of situations? How do you?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. I'm sure a lot of people have asked the same question, and I'm just gonna be quick on this. When I was in school, and I was an A student, and this was in high school, and I was always like the leader of the team. And whenever I told someone to do something for me or to do something for the team and they didn't get it done, I always got so pissed and so mad with that person. I was like, why didn't you do it? It's both responsibility. We both need the grade. And I realized that it was myself that was getting so mad and so pissed to these people, when I now I realize that, like, if someone doesn't do something, I mean, what's the big deal? And if there's a deal, it's for yourself. And as I said earlier, you need to make sure that every time you delegate something, that you follow up with that person and you make sure that that person is comfortable, that person is doing it, that person doesn't need any help, or, I mean, maybe he doesn't want to do it, and you're hoping that he's gonna do it, and hope is not gonna happen. Like, if you hope someone is gonna come to your party at 6 p.m. and he never confirmed, probably that person's not gonna come, or to your event. A party, they might come to a party, but not to your event, So that's what I'm saying. Like, be able to communicate with other people and be clear on your communication, and not, like, if that's the case, I don't think you'll have problems where people say, I didn't do it, because if you were clear and you were communicating with him and he was telling you the advances and what was happening, there's no reason that person won't do the work that he said he would do.
Yep, definitely. I think that comes down to the idea of picking the right people to work with, whether it's something that's
true.
One-on-one, or if it's like a group of people. It's so important to just pick the right people that you work with. You talked about group activities in college, or one-on-one activities, pairs of activities that you were doing in school. And I'm going to tie that into what I was doing in school, which was I would wait for the people at the end, the last people who didn't have anyone to work with. I didn't take the initiative to get up and say, you know what, I want to work with you, I want to work with you, I want to work with you. I didn't take that initiative. But what I did do was I waited. And I waited to work with the people that were left at the end. And this is not a good thing, or it's not a bad thing. This is not the best strategy. It's not the worst strategy. I think every strategy, regardless of what kind of cards that you're dealt with, you can still win the game. And so the way that I took the situation was that I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to make this my conscious decision. I'm going to be left with the remaining people in the class who didn't want to get picked. It's almost like you're working with the last few people who got picked in gym class, right? I'm going to work with these remaining 3 people, and I'm going to make them do all the work.
Mm.
I'm going to be responsible for everything. I'm going to take full accountability for, you know, everything that happens with our group. And I'm going to do some things, but somebody has to be the leader. And if no one's going to be the leader, then that means you got to be the leader.
Mm.
So I had to be the leader. And I said, okay, this is what's going on. You know, obviously they had their inputs where input was needed. And so I gave that to them. And that's kind of how I approach the situation. It's like it was not a great opportunity. It was not a bad opportunity. It was just a different kind of opportunity.
Yeah.
So, Emiliano, I've been talking a lot here, and I do want to wrap up this call. We are a little bit over schedule, which is fine because that means that we're giving away valuable content. And I just want to know if there's anything else that you want to say, just to kind of help us close this off.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it's been a great call, a lot of valuable information. And to wrap it up, I would say I don't want it to just stay in a call between you and I. I want other people to be able to experience that ability of delegating. So I would recommend you, if you're listening to me right now, that get with someone that you trust or someone that that you feel like could be a good team with you, and set a goal. Set an intention with that person, and really tell him what you want, and if he wants to or he or she wants to participate with you. If he says yes, you're all set. Like, have a meeting time, like every Monday, every Tuesday you meet or you call each other and you talk about things, and you do your homework through the week and you talk about your homework, and that's gonna make you grow pretty fast, and you'll realize that you'll have results quicker. So I would highly recommend you to do this and experience this amazing feeling of working with someone else. Oh, Siri is talking to me.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be delegating. It could be any kind of task that preferably is something that you're having troubles with in your life. Maybe it's meditating. Maybe it's making sure that you're saying your prayer every day, or maybe it's exercising. Whatever it might be that you are working on, and if it's something, especially if it's something that like you've been trying to work on it for a really long time, but it still feels like an obligation. One thing that I say is, when it no longer feels like an obligation, it becomes a habit. And so if it's something that no longer feels like or is still feeling like an obligation, and you've had it on you for a really long time, then find somebody to work with that is maybe going through the similar struggle as you, or someone who has already gone through that struggle and genuinely wants to help you. And one thing that I say is, well, not that I say, but I heard this online, that scientists have proven that it takes 21 days of consistency in order to build a habit. So whenever you guys are going out there and you're building your habits, whatever it might be, just remember that. Remember, it takes 21 days of consistent effort to build a habit. When it no longer feels like an obligation, it becomes a habit, good or bad. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in here. Emiliano, how can people get a hold of you?
So I have a YouTube channel. As I said before, I have uploaded for now 3 videos. My name is Emiliano Espinosa, and I'll have the link below. Also, if you want to contact me on Twitter or send me a Twitter, it's Emiliano Espinosa as well. I'll leave it on the comments below.
I'll have it in the below on this video, and we'll make sure that Emiliano gets a copy of this video as well. So, Emiliano, it was great working with you. I had a lot of fun, and I wonder what our next project's going to be.
Oh, we talked about so many things. I think we could really go deep into any of the aspects we shared, you know?
Well, whatever it is, I'm excited for it. So again, thank you so much, Emiliano, for coming on here. I really appreciate it. Again, I had a lot of fun, and I will talk to you soon.
Awesome. Have a good day, and thank you all who watched us. I'm sure I hope you had good lessons, and I hope to hear from you soon and hear your results.
Likewise. Have a great day, Emiliano.
Awesome. See you.
Bye.